So now that we connected with OpenAI in our UChat workspace, we can now utilize all of its features. The first feature that we want to discuss is the text generation tool. So with this text generation, a user can basically ask any question towards the chatbot. We will send the question towards OpenAI, and OpenAI will generate a response for us. Do note that these questions are not business specific, but we do have another feature for this which we will cover in a later video. So first of all, let's insert a question block. And from this question block, also let's connect it towards the starting step. And then from this question block, let's ask us a really simple question, something like, we'll save this inside a custom field called response for now. And then the next step will be to pass the question of the user towards OpenAI itself. And the way to do this is by going with an action block. Inside this action block, we're going with integrations, then OpenAI. We're going to press edit action, and from here we can choose the create text completion step. So inside this step, to create a text completion, you can do it any number of ways inside the prompt. But basically what we will do is just first to give OpenAI only the question the user asked. So the way to do that, you can do that in two ways. You can do that by using the custom field that we just used inside the question block, or just insert the last text input. Both of those custom fields, or system fields in this case, will work. For now, we will go with response. And then let's say for something like as a test value to see if OpenAI works properly, let's say, give me 5 tips on a successful marketing. I need to spell successful right. Successful marketing campaign. There we go. The model by default is Text DaVinci 003, but you can adjust this model to any you like. DaVinci 003 is a really good one, so I will leave it as default. Then we have the max tokens, and the max tokens by default is set to 100. But if you find that OpenAI comes up with uncompleted answers, uncompleted replies, that means that you will need to increase the token size. If you get those unfinished replies, then do note to experiment with increasing the maximum token size, because the token size will determine the number of characters that OpenAI will generate for you. Then we also have the temperature, and the temperature is by default set to 1, and it controls the randomness. So it will lower the result in less random completions. As the temperature approaches 0, the model will become deterministic and repetitive. So if you decrease the temperature, you might get the same answers every single time. So by default, leave it to 1, see if that works for you, and otherwise you can experiment with the temperature that way. Same goes with presence penalty. So default is set to 0, but the positive values penalize new tokens on whether they appear in the text so far, increasing the model's likelihood to talk about new topics. So again, I will leave it at 0, but you can experiment with it if you do not get the best results generated for you. Then we also have something called frequency penalty, and this also defaults to 0, but positive values penalize new tokens based on their existing frequency in the text so far. So that means if you increase the frequency penalty, that means that the number of words inside of a reply will become less repetitive, because OpenAI will then try to prevent those exact same words being generated over and over again. You can also experiment with stop sequences, but to be honest, I never used them and I did not even need them. For now, let's try to test the request and see what we get. So we ask, give me 5 tips on a successful marketing campaign. So let's see what OpenAI can come up with. So you will see that the model is Text DaVinci 003 because that's the default. And then we have the choices. In this case, we only created one choice, right? But we have a text here. So 1, develop a clear and consistent message. Create a focused message that speaks towards the target audience. And then we have number 2 tip, number 3 tip, And here you will see that the text actually cuts off, right? That means that the default 100 tokens is too little for OpenAI to generate this kind of response. So if we set it to 500, for example, then let's test the request again to see if we get a complete result back. So this will take just a few seconds, and then we'll get the sample data, as you can see here. And now you will see that we have tip 1, we have tip 2, we have tip, let's see, where is 3? I'm missing something. Tip 3 is here, tip 4 is here, and tip 5 is here with the total text completion. So this example alone will also show you that you sometimes need to increase the max tokens. Do note that when increasing max tokens means increasing the characters, but also increasing the billing, the credits that you have with OpenAI, because OpenAI is not for free. Once opening an account, you will get some free credits, but after that you will need to pay them. So do take note that you have to find a pretty good balance between the max amount of tokens and your usage in that regard. If we want to save this text, however, we can just go and select it. You will then see that we get a JSON path on the right hand side, and we can map this to any kind of a custom field. I already have a custom field called OpenAI response, so I will save it towards that. And once pressing add, you will see that it ends up at the below overview. We can press save. So what we have so far is we asked the question, we generated a reply from OpenAI, we saved it towards a custom field, and now it's time to display that generation, that text completion towards the user. We can easily do that by going with a send message tab. Inside that send message tab, let's also do a little bit of typing just to simulate an active conversation, right? So let's go with typing, and then let's say 2 seconds, and then we are going with a text message where we will just respond with OpenAI response. A few seconds later, so we will give the user some time to read it. Let's go with another typing delay. Let's say 5 seconds. Instead of typing, we are going to use waiting. And inside this waiting, after this waiting, we are going with another text. And let's say, if you want to try again, press the button below. Just so we can create a loop of sorts to test it multiple times. So let's go and let's say, try again. And let's connect that towards the questions tab and then publish this. So let's take a look if we can generate a few answers this way. Let's preview this flow and let's go with a web inside of a pop-up. So that should work just fine. And let's enlarge it a little bit. And from here, what would you like to know? Give me a recipe for an Italian pasta. There we go. So let's see if OpenAI can come up with a recipe for us. So it will generate the response, and then after a few seconds you will see the typing inside the chat conversation window, and then we should get a specific reply. And there we go. So this is a pretty big reply, as you can see. Because we set the OpenAI tokens to max of 500, you will see that we get a really structured reply. So we have the ingredients, we have the instructions on how to prepare the food, and with that we have a complete recipe within just seconds. So if you have no inspiration what you want to make for dinner today, then just ask the chatbot and the chatbot will come up with a recipe for you. Let's try another example. So let's go with something completely different, and let's say, so we could say something like this: generate a tweet about marketing tips and give proper hashtags. So if you have no idea what to post on certain social media, like Twitter in this case, let's see if OpenAI can help us with that. If this is something fitting towards your niche, which is marketing in my case, let's see if OpenAI can give me some ideas on what to post. So let's say generate. And let's see what OpenAI can come up with. And there we go. Marketing in the modern world starts with a good content. Create useful and unique resources that appeal to your target audience. Hashtag marketing tips, hashtag content strategy, hashtag small business. Now this is definitely a tweet that I can use inside of my Twitter account because it's really relevant towards my specific niche, which I am in. I'm in the education of marketing content. So this is fantastic for me to, if I have no inspiration whatsoever, I can just go inside of my chatbot and interact with the chatbot to ask for some additional content. In the next video, we're going to show you another feature of our native integration, which is image generations.